The circumstances that we have today for millions of people are not what we expected. We were told that everything was going to be a-okay, but if you look at what's happening with food and energy and everything else, it has certainly really added up. In fact, the first thing I want to talk about is how inflation is entrenched. We were told it wouldn't happen, but that already has. The second thing is the energy and food crisis, which has piled up on top of all of the other issues people experience in a normal life. And now this has come at a time when people wanted to retire, but they can't. The third thing is China's angry. We'll talk about that on multiple levels. Let's begin. In this video, I'm going to break down what's happening right here and the causes, why, and then what you need to do as an individual. You got to stick with me. Let's go. Nearly 1 in 3 seniors plan to work past 70 or never retire. Now, that's one thing. Like I always say, if you want to keep working, you feel that it's good for you, this is great. This is fantastic. But for so many people, they don't have a choice. At the same time, a lot of these people have this expectation that, hey, I'll just keep working. But what happens when a health issue arises for that person or a family member, which results in them being their caretaker and no longer able to be working? That is a big issue. So it's not a matter of, hey, I'm just going to keep working. Sometimes that can't happen. So you need to have your situation prepared as best you can. Inflation is causing the majority of Americans to stop or reduce their retirement savings. You see, they were planning, being told, yes, we have an issue here, obviously, but we're going to try to save into our 401k so that, the Social Security not going to keep up. But what happens when a disruption occurs and they can no longer add to that? Well, now that stretches the retirement age out further and further and further. That's what's happening right now today. Here we have it. Alliance Life study finds many Americans are foregoing long-term savings in response to continuing inflation impact on everyday expenses. 54% of Americans say that they have stopped or reduced retirement savings due to inflation. 62% worry that a major recession is right around the corner. Now, you don't have to look very far, but of course, that's the data that we have. Like most America's retirees, I'm frightened, noting many seniors have no experience dealing with inflation and recession during retirement. Think about that. A lot of people, they go through just expecting, hey, I'm going to be 65, I'm going to retire. I've got my Social Security benefits. I got a little nest egg here. I'm going to be able to simply sit back and relax. And then the disruption occurs. Wait a minute. Whoa, my retirement account isn't worth that amount? Oh no, it's worth 30% less. It's worth whatever the amount is. And that hurts people. And one little small note, if you can see it here, behind this gentleman's left elbow, you could see a good book. I think he's a good reader, perhaps. It's got some things around here. Not the money GPS. I looked around, I didn't see it there, but, let's start with that. Maybe it's hiding behind his back. 42% of Gen Z diagnosed with a mental health condition. I thought this was interesting. They break it down in here. 1 in 5 young adults are seeing a therapist. You go through and basically explaining that a lot of people, they do not feel financially stable. 60% of Gen Z respondents say that they don't feel financially stable. That's incredible, right? Because even though they're young, we have to have this in order from a young age. We don't need to be, okay, I'm ready for retirement right now. No, it has to be, okay, I've got things sorted out. I know the plan, and they feel confident. But that isn't the way it is, right? Does anybody know a Gen Z? I know not many of my subscribers are part of the Gen Z category, but if you do, we gotta get these people to wake up to the reality. Things like this. Auto loan delinquencies rise as loan accommodation programs end. Do you see the connection here? The delinquencies start to rise as soon as the accommodation programs end. This should not be a surprise to anybody here on this channel. I know we've been paying attention to all of this before, just like the moratoriums, just like everything else that was in place backstopping any potential problem. Well, that suddenly turned around very fast, didn't it? Okay, so this is all of the activities for today as it relates to this. And I think that it's going to be quite a detriment in the next little while as you see things adding up on top. This is just one. Grocery inflation hits a record high as UK families battle crisis. The cost of an average food shop increases by £682 a year. Supermarkets face their own pressures as wage bills rise. You see, everything has gone up, whether we look at it on, produce specifically, whether it's on animals, whether it's on, dairy products or whatever people buy. All of these things are going to make up a different basket of, your own levels of inflation depending on your dietary habits. But I think it's important to look at it and try to say, where is it that I'm spending the most money and should I be doing so? Maybe I'm shopping at the wrong place. Maybe I'm simply buying the wrong foods. Okay, because if you look at the heavily processed foods, a lot of those have gone up considerably. At least that was what I had seen before, looking at the statistics. So the more processing, the more different things that it has to go through, you've got labor costs that have increased and so on, those have risen. But if you're looking at some basic produce item that just needs to be grown, transported from the farm to the supermarket, that may not have increased quite as much. Okay, that's where we're getting at here. Rush to replace Russian gas will bring years of global shortages. I also wanted to note that if you have problems with natural gas, well then you've got problems with fertilizer. If you've got problems with fertilizer, then you've got problems with the food supply. If you've got problems with the food supply, people take to the streets. And that's really what this is about. If you made it this far into the video, understand that civil unrest comes from this very thing. So if you are not getting yourself protected, then I believe you should be looking into that, to say the least. Let me show you something here. This is what we have in Europe. They're racing to fill a gap left by Russian gas. Emerging nations like Pakistan, Bangladesh, Thailand are being forced to compete on energy prices with Germany and other economies several times their size. It's all leaving the world's poorest countries facing shutdowns, blackouts, social unrest that may take years to resolve. Now, I bring this to you. I just quoted out of Bloomberg social unrest. And people, when they say to me, you're just trying to generate fear and all this, I literally take these words out of the articles and I put them on the title and I put them on the thumbnail. And I got to hear that all the time. No, people need to get prepared and I don't care. Okay, this is what has to happen. And those that listen are going to be better off. Those that don't are going to be in worse shape at the end of the day. That's just a simple matter of fact. You look back in history, I'm a student of history, and you see it time and time again. That's why I have the two pillars. That's why I discuss this all the time. I've got the two pillars right here. What is it? One is income and one is preservation. What am I talking about? That is getting your financial house in order, increasing your income. And then the other aspect is self-sufficiency, off-grid living, growing a garden, all these different things. You got the two pillars. You can pick one or the other, or you can have a bit of both. But without that, you're going to be in trouble. So that's why I talk about it all the time. That's why I explain it all the time. And for those who stick around to the end of the video, that's where I always give these suggestions. Look here. I wanted to show you this. How you can save on electric and heating bills this winter. They give you the basics, you're probably already aware of it, but essentially money saving tips such as opening the curtains during the day to let the sun come in, insulating any drafty windows, adjusting the thermostat, finding and sealing air leaks, and maintaining existing heating systems in your home. I'll talk more about these at the end of the video, but the point I wanted to make is energy prices are going up. You need to take action to help yourself out. There are very cheap things that you could be doing or free things that you could be doing to make a difference. Banks bet on subprime consumers sends credit card balances to a record. Cards issued to customers with credit blemishes are surging. Americans turn to HELOCs, your home equity line of credit, to pay down pricier forms of debt. Now, I do think, despite the fact that probably shouldn't have gone into the credit card debt in the first place. Yeah, use the home equity. It's better because it's going to be cheaper debt. But hopefully people just don't go into debt unless that's an absolute emergency. Very important, okay? Balances soared 19% to $866 billion The average credit line also climbing to a record high. We do not have any experience with what happens when $1 trillion of debt is unable to be paid back. And why? Because inflation, because of interest rates being very high, because of potentially job losses. Citigroup, Barclays joined rivals in cutting investment banking jobs. Reductions follow dramatic slide in revenue from the business. This is important. It's not just one company. It's not just one industry. We are seeing this all around. This is happening right now. Layoffs this month as a percentage of the workers. Twitter, Cameo, Robinhood, Intel, Snapchat, and so on. You got a lot of the tech companies, but they're not the only ones. I just think it's important with the tech companies because they say, this is the future. This is everything. You don't need to actually guess what's going on. You don't need to know anything. All you need to do is invest in tech because they're going to be able to ride this all out. Always, always, always. But it doesn't really work like that. There's always going to be a few outliers that perform very well, and then there's going to be a bunch of others that lag behind. And so, yeah, you can invest in the index and sort of ride that out. But I think it's important to understand that not everything is bulletproof. Here we have Tesla losing valuation race to Berkshire as growth stocks sputter. I wanted to show you the chart on here. You can see it for yourself. Tesla's been up and down. This market cap, by the way. Market cap is up, it's down, it's over $1 trillion, then it plunges. And now Berkshire, the tortoise, you could potentially argue, especially in 2020. I mean, this guy had a lot of bad publicity around him. He's old, he's washed up, he's this and that. But you see for yourself what has happened over the last little while. Isn't it so? Here we have Chinese authorities behind a major trade expo in Shanghai pull an address by the EU chief that was set to criticize Russia's, quote, illegal war in Ukraine and call for reduced trade dependency on China. So obviously, China is going to say, yeah, we're just going to cut you off right there. China is clearly on the same page as Russia. We know that to be the case. There's no doubt about that. But you expand that out further and understand what's happening with the BRICS nations. They are not only expanding their alliance as trade partners, they're expanding into their own potentially. They say they want this. They say they're working on it, in fact. They're developing their own reserve currency. Now, maybe that doesn't have much of an impact like with the US, for instance. But between each other, 40% of the world's population, a growing percentage of the total global economy, that's going to be a big difference. So you see what happens with China, you got to watch very close. They're making a lot of leaps, let's call it that. China lashes out at visit by UK trade minister to Taiwan. So you had what was going on with the Speaker of the House in the United States going to Taiwan. China said, don't do it, don't go. And what did they do? They went anyway. And then, of course, there was all this craziness. Is this going to be the beginning of World War III and so on? Well, here we have another one, which is the UK Trade Minister going to Taiwan. So this is happening left, right, and center. We are building up towards something much bigger. And unfortunately, this is not going to end well, it seems. I hope cooler heads will prevail. That's what I look for. Now, I want to break down exactly what we need to be looking at today. The economic hardship is being felt by millions of people, and they're going to the ballot box and they're choosing who they want to be in place to make sure that that happens. Well, I think it's important that we don't rely on any one individual or any one group, that we try to do our best for ourselves. I think that's important, okay? With energy bills rising, people are forced to pay more per month, leaving less for investments, savings, and disposable income. All of those things are really key because these have effects on the economy indirectly. If people are not spending, it doesn't make its way through. Hardship is being felt at every age on a global scale as central banks reduce their stimulus, thereby creating volatile markets. So if the markets start to fall, people cannot have the abundance that they once did. They got to work longer. Other things happen. By the way, if they're working longer, that means that a job's not there for somebody else too. But now we have millions of extra jobs coming through, and so it's kind of a wacky environment to say the least. Reduce your energy bills as best you can. Seal your doors and windows. Get fixed pricing on your energy. Just call them up and say, I want to get fixed pricing. Do you have that? What is your quote? What can you offer me? Give me the best you can, and so on. A lot of people don't realize that they can do that, but in many cases they can. Don't heat areas that you're not in. If you have a basement and you're not going to be there, close the vents, okay? Because you're just going to end up heating those things. Same with any other room or anything. Close those vents. Why not? Use the app Flipp, and I believe there's one called Rebee, Rebee, something like this, to find the lowest prices on items that you need. And that's not that you're going to go buy lettuce here and you go buy your carrots here. It's if you need something, you can make sure that when you need it, you can get the cheapest price around. It's Flipp, Flipp. I would recommend that. Do your best today because that's all that we can do. That's it. You can't be expected to, change the whole world in an instant, but you can be expected to try your best. That's all. So if you found this video informative, you will definitely find tomorrow's video informative. In fact, if you want, you can hit that subscribe button down below, and I'll see you tomorrow.